My gas light blinked, and I still pulled into the empty station because I didn't want to drive another mile on fumes. I stopped under the canopy, killed the engine, and sat there scrolling like a dumbass because the cold made me stall. I've been running on caffeine and spite since noon, and my brain kept doing that cheap bargain thing. Just get home, just get warm, just don't deal with anything else tonight. The station sat off a dark two lane, no houses, no other businesses, just a rectangle of light and a half-dead sign buzzing over the pumps. I told myself it was fine. Lights mean safety, right? Cameras mean people behave, right? I've heard myself say that stuff before like it's a spell. A car rolled in and didn't take a pump. It parked one lane over, lights off, engine on. I watched the windshield. No phone glow, no head turn, just a dark block idling. The hair on my arms went up, and I still sat there another 10 seconds, thumb flicking my feed, pretending I hadn't noticed. I hate that about myself. I hate how I try to act normal when my body is already yelling. I got out anyway. I started fueling. My hands shook from the wind, and from that feeling you get when your body notices something your brain keeps denying. The nozzle clacked, the pump screen lit, numbers started ticking, and all I could hear under was his engine sitting there, steady, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I glanced at the store window. The cashier was inside, alone, leaning on the counter like he'd rather be anywhere else. The car door opened. Slow. A guy stepped out and didn't walk toward the store or the pumps. He walked straight at me, steady, like he already knew where I'd be standing. Not lost, not unsure. He moved like he'd done this before. Hoodie up, hands low, shoulders loose. He didn't look around for cameras. He didn't look at the price sign. He locked onto me and kept coming. I snapped the nozzle back in and moved toward my driver door. He sped up. I grabbed the handle and yanked. Locked because I'd hit lock when I got out. Perfect. I jammed the fob. Nothing. I hit again. Still nothing. My finger went numb from mashing it, like the car was punishing me for being stupid. I tried the key in the door, and my hand shook so bad I missed the slot once. He closed the distance and lifted his hand, palm out, like he wanted me to relax. He kept his other hand behind his thigh like he carried something and didn't want to show it. That fake calm made me want to puke. His face stayed blank except for this thin little smile that flickered and died, like he was testing which version of himself I'd respond to. I backed up and he stepped in, cutting the angle toward the driver's side. I backed around the rear of my car. He matched it. I started yelling, loud, ugly, not words, just noise to pull a witness out of the dark. My voice cracked. I didn't care. I wanted light, eyes, anyone. I slammed my palm on my trunk and kept yelling because I didn't have anything else in my hands. The cashier stayed behind bulletproof glass, and watch like this was entertainment. I could see him clear as day. He stared, then picked up his phone, then set it down like it wasn't his problem. I shouted toward the door, "Call the cops," and it came out raw and mean. He shook his head, slow, like I was asking him to jump into traffic. He mouthed something I couldn't hear and shrugged. I hated him right then. I hated that he had a button to lock himself behind glass, and I was out here doing laps around my own car like prey. The guy kept closing. He didn't rush like a panic creep. He moved like a metronome. Every time I tried to slide past the bumper, he drifted with me. I reached into my pocket for my phone, and my glove got caught on my keys, and I dropped them. They hit the ground and skittered under the car. I felt my stomach go hollow. The guy's head tilted like he enjoyed that little slip, like it was a gift. I bent without thinking, and the cold hit my knees. My fingers scraped wet pavement, reaching under the frame. I caught the key fob by the lanyard and yanked it back. I stood up fast, and my head spun. The guy was closer now, close enough that I could smell him through the wind. He smelled like sweat and sweet rot, like old beer that dried in a fabric. I backed again, and my heel hit the curb stop. I sprinted to the passenger side, hit unlock, dove in, and slammed the door. The guy hit the window with his fist, and the sound cracked through the cabin. He tried the handle. He tried again. He leaned close and smiled at my shaking hands like he enjoyed the panic. The glass fogged where he breathed on it. His eyes stayed wide and bright. Not angry, Not frantic, just hungry and awake. I fumbled the keys. They slipped, bounced off the console, and landed in the footwell. I swore so loud it didn't even sound like a word. He kept yanking the handle, then stopped and pressed his palm flat against the window like he was feeling for heat. He said something, one short line, soft, like he was talking to a kid. I couldn't even process it, and that scared me more than if he'd shouted. I got the car started and threw it in reverse. The tires chirped and slid. He jumped back just enough to not get clipped, then kicked my door as I pulled away. The kick left a dent the size of his boot. The whole car jolted like I'd hit a pothole. I saw his mouth move in the mirror, and he raised his hand again, slow, like a wave. Like he was sure this wasn't over. I didn't go home. I drove to the police station lot because it was the only place with lights and cameras. I ran 2 red lights. I didn't even feel it until after, when my hands started cramping around the wheel. I kept checking my mirrors, heart hammering, expecting that dark car to fill the lane behind me. Every set of headlights made my spine lock. I took weird turns just to see if anyone followed. I circled a block twice, sweating inside my coat. When I hit the police station lot, I parked right under the brightest light and locked the doors so hard I clicked the button 3 times. I sat there with my heart banging, staring at the dent like it was a bite mark. My throat hurt from yelling. My stomach kept rolling like I'd swallowed seawater. I watched the building entrance. People moved inside. No one came out. I forced myself to get out and walk to the door. Halfway there, I looked back at my car like I expected it to be gone. I pushed inside and the warmth hit my face. A front desk officer looked up, then down at his screen like I was interrupting him. I told him what happened in one fast, ugly rush, and I could hear how frantic I sounded. He asked, "Did he touch you?" Like that was the only checkbox that mattered. I said no. He sighed. He asked if I got a plate. I didn't. He shrugged again, the same damn shrug. I pointed at the dent and told him the station has cameras and the police station has cameras, and it can't be that hard. He told me they'd take a report and asked me to fill out a form. A form. My hand was still shaking, and he slid paper at me like I was renewing my license. I started writing, and my pen kept tearing the page. I felt stupid and furious at the same time. I almost walked outright then, because standing there begging to be believed felt worse than being alone at the pump. I went back to my car anyway. I sat there again because I didn't trust the road and I didn't trust my own brain. I kept smelling something wrong every time I moved. At first, I thought it was the gas on my gloves. Then I caught it again, sweet and rotten like old beer and sweat. It wasn't in the car. It was on me. When I finally got brave enough to step out, I smelled something on my coat that wasn't mine. Sweet and rotten like old beer and sweat. I searched my pockets because my hands needed a job. I emptied them on the hood. Receipts, gum, chapstick, loose change, like proof I was still in control of something. The smell clung to the bottom of my coat, near the hem. That made my skin crawl because that meant someone got close. Close enough to brush past me. Close enough to touch the fabric where my hand doesn't normally go. I ran my fingers along the inside lining and felt a stiff little bump, like tape pressed flat. I pulled the seam open and saw it. A tiny tracker taped inside the lining near the hem. Neat strip of black tape, pressed flat like someone did it with practice. My mouth went dry. My knees went loose. I didn't even scream. I just stared at it like it was an insect that could jump. I turned in my fingers and it felt warm, like it had been sitting against me for hours, quietly doing its job. I ripped it off and threw it onto the pavement and still kept looking over my shoulder because the real disgust wasn't the device. The disgust was realizing he probably watched me in that lot earlier, close enough to touch my coat, close enough to decide I looked like an easy night. I stayed late at the gym because my apartment felt worse than the treadmill. Past midnight, the place ran on motion lights and silence. The front desk closed. The music cut off. Every step sounded like I was trespassing in my own membership. I finished my set and walked to the locker room. The lights flicked on as I entered, then blinked like the sensors didn't like me. I changed fast, shoved my stuff into my bag, and headed out. The exit door didn't open. I hit it again. The bar didn't move. The front doors had a time block. I knew that, but I'd never been dumb enough to get caught by it. I walked back toward the cardio area and pulled my phone out. No service inside the concrete box. I tried the Wi-Fi. It wanted a login. I tried the emergency call button by the office. It gave me a dead beep. I didn't panic right away. I got pissed. I yanked at other doors like a customer in a store that just locked up early. Side exit by the studios, locked. Back exit by the loading zone, dead. I shoved the glass at the front like it might flex. It didn't. The streetlights outside made the windows look like black mirrors. So half the time, I kept seeing my own face and thinking it was someone watching. I tried 911 anyway. The call failed so fast it felt like the phone didn't even bother. I turned airplane mode on and off, restarted, held it up near vents, held it against the glass, walked laps like signal might be hiding in some corner. Nothing. I found the wall panel for the fire alarm and stared at it, then backed off. Pulling that means cops, fees, questions, my name in a report. I hated that my brain even cared, but it did. I still grabbed it once, fingertips on the plastic, and let go because I hated the idea of setting off a siren and still being trapped inside with whoever was making that noise. Then I heard a soft clank from the far hallway. Maintenance corridor, staff only. Not loud, not accidental. A metal sound that came from a hand, not a settling pipe. I froze and listened. Another clank, then a slow drag, like something heavy sliding across the tile. I walked toward the office door because it had a landline. I grabbed the handle and found it locked too. The little window in the door showed the desk, the phone, a stapler, a mug, all of it right there like a joke. I smacked the glass with my palm, hard, just to make noise, and immediately regretted it. Behind me, a light turned on in the staff corridor. Not a full hallway light, just a thin glow under a door like someone cracked it open. I didn't call out. I didn't do the brave movie thing. I backed away and grabbed a kettlebell because it was there and I needed weight in my hands. I picked a mid-size one, not because I'm tough, but because I needed something I could actually swing without dropping it. Footsteps came out of that corridor, not running, slow, controlled, like the person wanted me to hear each step. A man emerged wearing a hoodie and nitrile gloves. He didn't have a bag. He didn't have a towel. He held a ring of keys and a small can of something that looked like spray lubricant. He didn't look lost. He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked annoyed, like I'd stayed open past closing and ruined his routine. He looked at me, then at the kettlebell, and made a face like I'd inconvenienced him. He walked toward the front doors and reached for the lock panel like he planned to open it. For a split second, I thought he was staff. I almost felt relief. Then I saw the gloves again. I saw the way he kept his head down, like cameras mattered. I moved to stop him because I didn't want him behind me, didn't want him deciding where I went next. I didn't even think attack. I just thought, don't let him get position. He pivoted and cut in close. He grabbed my strap and yanked my bag hard enough to pull me off balance. The bag didn't matter, but the move did. It told me he wasn't here to help. I swung the kettlebell and missed his head by inches. It hit a weight rack and rang out like a bell. The sound bounced off every wall. The lights over the free weights flicked brighter like they woke up to watch. He stepped back, stared at the dented rack, then smiled with his teeth. That smile had zero warmth. It felt like a promise. He didn't charge me. He let me back up. He stayed loose, hands low, keys in one fist, that can in the other. He shifted left when I shifted left, like we were tied together. My arm started to burn from holding the kettlebell up, and I hated that too, hated that my body was already losing before anything really happened. I ran for the bathroom because it had a bolt on the inside. I didn't say anything. I just turned and sprinted. I heard him step after me, not fast, but close enough to keep pressure on. I slammed in and locked it. I threw the bolt and braced my shoulder against the door. The knob rattled once, and my stomach dropped straight through the floor. I stood on the toilet to reach the ceiling tile. My fingers shook so hard I fumbled twice before I shoved the tile up. Dust fell in my eyes, and I blinked like crazy. I pushed my phone into the open ceiling space like that would magically find signal. Nothing. I held it there anyway and waited, jaw clenched, listening. He tried a handle once, then again. Then he stopped and just stood outside, breathing. Not heavy, not panicked. Calm, like he was counting. I heard keys jingle, slow, like he wanted me to imagine what each one opened. I heard him scrape something against the door frame, like he was testing the latch. The scrape went up and down, gentle, like he was learning how much play it had. I kept thinking he'd kick it, but he didn't. He didn't have to. I dialed my building super's number because it was the last call I made that ever went through in that neighborhood. No luck. I recorded a video with the flash off, whispering the date, the gym name, what I'd seen, and I texted it to my sister even though it wouldn't send. I needed it queued up, ready, like leaving a note in a bottle. My mouth tasted like metal. I had to swallow to keep from gagging. After a long minute, he walked away. Not hurried, just done. Like he didn't need a rush because the building belonged to him at night. I listened until the hum of the fans was all I could hear again. Then I stayed frozen because silence doesn't mean safe. It just means he stopped making noise. I came off the toilet and sat on the floor with the kettlebell in my lap like a pet rock. My legs cramped. My phone battery sank. Every time headlights swept past the front windows, my heart kicked, then dropped when the lights kept going. Once I heard a faint clink again, farther away, like keys tapping metal. I pressed my ear to the door and heard nothing else, which somehow made it worse. At some point, my body got tired enough to do stupid math. If he left, I could run to the staff corridor and maybe find another exit. If he didn't leave, stepping out meant he'd be right there. I opened the bathroom door 2 inches, just enough to look. The gym sat empty, lights dim, machines lined up like sleeping animals. No hoodie, no gloves, no movement. I closed it again and waited because I didn't trust my own eyes. I waited until dawn when the staff arrived. I walked out with the kettlebell still in my hands like a ridiculous weapon. A kid at the desk laughed because he thought it was a joke. Then his smile died when he saw my face. I tried to talk and my voice came out rough, like I'd been screaming all night even though I hadn't. The manager showed up with that tight, annoyed energy people get when they think you created a problem they have to fix. She asked why I stayed so late, like the lock was a moral lesson. I told her the call button was dead. I told her a man came out of staff only wearing gloves. She nodded like she was already filing it under drama. She walked me to the office and unlocked it. And that pissed me off because she could have done that the whole time if she'd been here, if anyone had been here, if the place gave shit. She checked cameras. Half the feeds weren't recording. The staff corridor door showed no entry on the log. She said it like it proved something. I pointed at the dent in the rack and she barely glanced. One of the employees suggested maybe it was a contractor. Another said maybe I spooked myself. They didn't mean harm. They just wanted the morning to stay normal. And my story made it ugly. I felt myself shrinking because arguing with them felt like begging them to believe I deserved to be scared. I didn't push for cops. I hate admitting that. I didn't push because I picture the manager turning it into a policy thing, me getting blamed for being there after hours, the guy in the hoodie already gone, already clean, already smiling somewhere else. I signed whatever incident form she slid over like it was a return receipt. I kept my mouth shut and nodded like it was fine, because the other horror is how fast people try to file your fear into probably nothing. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and heard a second set of keys jingle from somewhere inside my apartment. Not the same sound, not the echo, a separate little clink that answered mine. I froze with my palms still on the deadbolt. I didn't even shut the door all the way at first. I just stared at the Red Bull like it had moved. My brain tried to fix it fast. Pipes settling, the upstairs guy dropping something. Anything that wasn't what it sounded like. But it was keys. Metal on ceramic. Close. Like someone else had the same habit in my place. I pushed the door shut and turned the deadbolt slow, quiet. I left the chain off because I wanted to be able to rip the door open if I had to. My phone was already in my hand, screen dim, flashlight ready. I started moving before I could talk myself out of it. Not brave, just fast. Phone light, sweep, check move. Closet by the entry. Coats, shoes, nothing behind them. Bathroom. I yanked the shower curtain back so hard the ring snapped. Cabinets open. Empty. Bedroom. I dropped to a knee and shoved the light under the bed. Dust to sock. No person. Living room. Behind the curtains, behind a recliner, pantry door, even the stupid little gap between the fridge and the wall. Nothing. Every room felt too clean, like it was waiting for me to stop looking. I went back to the door and picked up my keys, then dropped them into the bowl again, trying to recreate it. One clink. That was it. No answering jingle. No second sound. I hated how much that didn't help. I locked up anyway, chain on, deadbolt in. I checked the strike plate, and the screws like that meant anything. Then I sat on the couch with my shoes still on because taking them off felt like admitting I planned to stay. I kept telling myself I was tired, I was jumpy, I was being dramatic, but my eyes kept flicking to the bowl by the door. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One line. Nice red bowl. My stomach tightened so hard it hurt. That wasn't random. That wasn't a scam. That was my apartment. That was my entryway. I didn't reply. I got up and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Same fluorescent hum. Same stained carpet. No shadow leaning near the frame. My phone buzzed again. Don't look out here. I stepped back like the door had heat on it. I felt stupid for even checking the peephole, because now whoever it was knew exactly what I'd do. I opened my door camera app with shaking thumbs. I installed it after packages went missing, mostly to feel less like a mark. The live feed loaded gray, then snapped into view. Someone stood inches from my door, just off-center, out of peephole range. Hood up, face angled down. He held his phone in one hand like he was reading a menu while he waited. He didn't pace, didn't knock, didn't do anything loud. He just occupied that spot like he owned it. I hit 911. I got an automated wait message. I almost laughed like my body tried to cough up the panic. I kept the camera feed up anyway, watching him like if I stared hard enough, I could force him to leave. He lifted his head and looked straight into the lens. Not a glance, a look, like he knew where it was and wanted me to know he knew. Then the power went out. Kitchen light snapped off. The little hum of the fridge died. My router went dark. The camera feed froze and vanished. Wi-Fi gone. My apartment turned into a black box, and my phone glow suddenly felt like a beacon. I stood there, stupidly blinking, waiting for the lights to flicker back, but nothing came. I moved to the kitchen by memory and grabbed the biggest knife I had. The weight of it made my skin crawl. It wasn't protection, not really. It was just something for my hand to do besides shake. I heard the doorknob turn. Slow, then stop, then turn again, harder, like he'd found the right pressure. Metal clicked against the latch in little testing bursts. No words, no threats, just quiet work. I shoved a chair under the handle and jammed it in. The legs scraped loud across the floor, and I hated that sound because it announced me. I pressed my shoulder to the door and put my weight into it. The knob kept moving, clicking, trying like he was patient enough to stand there all night. I tried 911 again. Still the recorded voice. I wanted to throw the phone. My phone buzzed anyway, like he had better service than I did. You should have answered. My teeth started clicking. Not crying, not screaming. Just this stupid animal reaction. I kept thinking about that first jingle, how it answered mine, how close it had sounded. I held the door and waited for the lock to give, because that's what it felt like, waiting for a thing to fail. Then the knob stopped. Silence hit so hard it rang. I didn't move. I didn't breathe right. Footsteps drifted away, slow down the hall. Not running, not rushing, just leaving like he'd decided to do something else. For half a second, I felt relief, and then a soft scrape came from my window. I live on the second floor. That scrape shouldn't exist. It sounded like something dragged along metal, short and controlled. Then another scrape, a little longer, like pressure shifting. I didn't go look. My legs wouldn't take me. I stayed planted at the door like it was the only solid thing in the apartment. My phone buzzed again. You're so quiet. I turned the brightness down until the screen was barely there. I crouched, like hiding the glow would matter. I kept my ear tilted toward the window and listened for the next scrape. Nothing. Then a faint tap like a fingertip on glass, and my stomach flipped. I finally got a human voice on 911 and spilled it out in broken sentences. The line crackled. The dispatcher sounded tired. I sounded insane. I didn't hang up. I just stayed there, shoulder to the door, knife sweating in my hand, until my arm burned. When the police showed, it wasn't dramatic. Just a knock and a flashlight beam under the door. I didn't open right away. I made them say it twice. I cracked the door with the chain still on and saw two uniforms in a dim hall, annoyed faces, hands near belts. I told them about the texts, the camera, the power, the knob, the window. I show my phone. One of them asked if I had an ex. Like that covers every man-shaped problem in the world. I snapped at him and he snapped back. He said, basically, if I didn't see a face, there wasn't much they could do. I said someone tried my fucking lock in the dark and then climbed to my window. They walked the hall, checked the stairwell, checked the back door. Found nothing. Maintenance came later and the building power came back with a little surge, lights blinking on like nothing happened. My camera app reconnected. The last clip was the hood, the head lift, the look into the lens, then black. No audio, no name, no plate. The cops wrote it down anyway and told me to call again if he came back. Like I was ordering a repeat delivery. After they left, I locked everything and dragged the couch closer to the door without thinking, like I could build a fort out of furniture in denial. I didn't sleep. Every pipe tick sounded like a knob turning again. Every car door outside made my shoulders jump. In the morning, I opened the curtains and saw muddy prints on the outside ledge under my window. Not a full boot print. Partial, smeared like someone balanced there and shifted weight. There was a heel mark near the corner and a drag streak where something slipped. I stared at it until my eyes went dry. Daylight didn't fix it. It just made it clearer. I took photos and sent them to the property manager. She replied hours later with some soft, useless line about reminding residents to use the front entrance. I called her and she got defensive fast, like my fear was an accusation. She asked if I was sure and if I maybe left the window open and a raccoon climbed up. I lost it. I told her a raccoon doesn't text you about your Red Bull and tell you not to look out. I told her to check the building cameras. She went quiet because she knew the cameras don't cover that side well. She promised she'd see what she could do, which meant nothing. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the bowl by the door like it was evidence. I kept thinking about how casual his messages were. Not rage, not threats, just control. Like he'd already decided I was his to scare whenever he wanted. I replaced the deadbolt that afternoon. I bought longer screws. I even wedged a dowel in the window track. All of it felt like dressing a wound while the knife was still in the room. I don't know why he left. Maybe he heard the chair scrape. Maybe he saw me call. Maybe he got bored. But that's the part that sticks, the part one can't shake when I walk up my stairs at night and fumble with my keys. It wasn't paranormal, and it wasn't my imagination. It was a person who came quiet, watched me through glass, touched my locks, and walked away when he felt like it, like I was just a house he might come back to.